tense family meeting to divide the estate. My parents stunning me by handing the full $10 million, 0 cents inheritance, to my sibling, dismissing me as not ready for success. But then, my grandmother rose from her chair and shocked the room by presenting me with a $75 million, 0 cents trust fund. My father yelled, "This is unfair!" What my grandmother did next left him speechless. The steering wheel vibrated under my palms, a low hum that matched the pounding in my chest. The Napa Valley Road twisted like a serpent, cliffs rising on one side, a sheer drop to the vineyards below on the other. I was late. Again! Grandpa Henry's summons had come out of nowhere. A cryptic call from his attorney, Charles Reed, demanding my presence at the Carter estate for a family financial meeting. My stomach churned with dread, but I pressed the gas, the Tesla's engine whining as I pushed it harder. I had to make it. I had to prove I belonged, even if my family had spent my entire life convincing me I didn't. Then it happened. The brake pedal sank to the floor, lifeless. My heart lurched as the car surged forward, unresponsive. I pumped the pedal again. Nothing. The curve ahead loomed, a hairpin turn with no guardrail, just a 200-foot plunge to the Rocky Valley floor. No, 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 I gasped, yanking the wheel left, then right, searching for traction. The tires squealed, skidding on gravel. Time slowed, each second stretching into eternity as the cliff's edge rushed closer. I slammed the emergency brake, the car fishtailing wildly. With a sickening crunch, the Tesla veered into a ditch, metal crumpling against rock. The airbag exploded, slamming my head back, and everything went black. I came to with the taste of copper in my mouth, blood trickling from a cut on my lip. The dashboard was a spiderweb of cracks, warning lights flashing like a casino slot machine. My hands trembled as I unbuckled my seatbelt, the reality sinking in. Someone had tampered with my brakes. This wasn't an accident. Someone wanted me dead, or at least out of the way. But who? My sister Olivia, with her razor-sharp ambition? My father, James, who'd called me a disappointment more times than I could count? Or someone else, lurking in the shadows of our family's tech empire? I stumbled out of the wreckage, my legs wobbling like a newborn foal. The Napa sun beat down, glinting off the twisted metal. My phone was dead, shattered in the crash. I was alone, miles from the Carter estate, with no way to call for help. But I had to keep moving. Grandpa Henry was waiting, and whatever this meeting was about, it was big. Big enough to make someone try to kill me. I'm Emily Carter, 30 years old, the black sheep of a Silicon Valley dynasty that's been splashed across Forbes and Wired more times than I care to count. My family's name is synonymous with Carter Tech, the AI and cybersecurity giant my grandfather, Henry Carter, built from a garage in Palo Alto to a global behemoth. But to me, the Carter name is a cage. One I've spent my life trying to escape. Growing up in our Palo Alto mansion, I was the invisible daughter, the one who didn't fit the mold. My parents, James and Margaret, had eyes only for my sister, Olivia, 4 years my senior, and the golden child of their corporate dreams. Olivia was everything they wanted. A Stanford MBA with a knack for closing multi-million-dollar deals, her face plastered on business magazines by 25. Me, I was the other one, the kid who'd rather code algorithms than network at galas. At 10, I won a national coding competition, my AI model predicting wildfire patterns with eerie accuracy. My parents didn't show up to the ceremony. They were too busy cheering Olivia's high school debate victory. When Olivia gave her valedictorian speech at 18, Forbes called her the future of tech. My robotics award that same year, not even a footnote in our family's narrative. I learned early to stop seeking their approval. I poured myself into my work, building intricate systems that could solve real problems: disaster response, healthcare access, climate modeling. At MIT, My AI for emergency logistics won a Global Innovation Prize, but my parents called it impractical, a distraction from the real business of Carter Tech. Olivia, meanwhile, was climbing the ranks as VP of Strategy, her every move a headline. I didn't care. Or at least, I told myself I didn't. I founded my own startup, Ethic AI, dedicated to transparent, human-centered artificial intelligence. It was my rebellion, my way of proving I could succeed without the Carter name. But rebellion comes at a cost. Investors, swayed by Olivia's whispers, pulled $10 million 0 cents in funding last year, leaving Ethic AI on the brink of bankruptcy. Then, my fiancé Ethan, a venture capitalist I'd trusted with my heart and my code, betrayed me. He leaked my proprietary algorithms to a competitor, tanking my company and our engagement in one brutal blow. "You're too idealistic, Emily," he'd said, packing his bags. "This is Silicon Valley. Dreams don't pay." So when Charles Reed's call came, I was at my lowest. "Your grandfather requests your presence at the Napa Valley estate," he'd said, his voice clipped and formal. "It's regarding family financial matters. Everyone will be there." Everyone. My parents, Olivia, the extended Carter clan. A reunion I'd rather avoid. Our last family gathering, a tense Thanksgiving at the estate, had ended with me leaving early, unable to stomach Olivia's self-congratulatory tales of corporate conquest. But Grandpa Henry wasn't someone you said no to. At 82, he was a legend, a man who'd turned a $500 0 cents investment into a tech empire. He was also the only one who'd ever seen me, really seen me. When I was 8, sitting cross-legged in his office, coding my first chatbot on a clunky laptop, he'd knelt beside me, his eyes bright with pride. "You've got a mind that builds worlds, Emily," he'd said. "Don't let anyone tell you it's not enough." Those words carried me through years of being overlooked. But they couldn't shield me from the fear now clawing at my gut. Someone had tried to kill me, and I was walking straight into the lion's den. The hike to the Carter estate took hours, my sneakers crunching on gravel as the sun dipped toward the horizon. My head throbbed, and every rustle in the vineyards made me jump, half expecting another attack. By the time the estate's iron gates came into view, I was sweaty, bruised, and running on adrenaline. The mansion sprawled across 50 acres, a modernist masterpiece of glass and steel, its angular lines reflecting the Carters' obsession with control. Vines climbed the walls, softening the cold precision, but nothing could soften the tension waiting inside. Liam, the estate manager, was at the gate before I could buzz. "Miss Emily," he said, his Irish lilt warm but strained. "We were worried. Your car—" He stopped, his eyes flicking to the bruises on my face. "I'm fine," I lied, brushing past him. "Just a little accident." His silence said he didn't believe me, but he didn't press. Liam had been with the family since I was a kid, always a quiet presence, loyal to Grandpa Henry above all. If anyone knew what was brewing, it was him. But his guarded expression told me I'd get no answers yet. The foyer was a hive of activity, relatives milling about with champagne flutes, their laughter sharp and performative. Aunt Clara, my father's sister, pulled me into a hug, her perfume overwhelming. "Emily, you look dreadful," she said, her concern genuine but fleeting. Uncle Robert, my mother's brother, gave a curt nod from the bar, his whiskey glass already half empty. Cousins I hadn't seen in years whispered in corners, their eyes darting toward me, then away. And then there was Olivia. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," she called, descending the grand staircase like a queen. At 34, Olivia was a vision. Blonde hair swept into a flawless chignon, her tailored Armani suit screaming power. Her smile was all teeth, the kind that could cut glass. "Love the disheveled look, Em. Very startup chic." I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to snap back. "Good to see you too, Olivia," I said, keeping my voice. She air-kissed my cheek, her perfume sharp as her tone. "Is it? I heard your little company's circling the drain. Such a shame." Before I could respond, my parents emerged from the library. My father, James, was all corporate polish. Graying hair, bespoke suit, eyes that never quite met mine. My mother, Margaret, was elegance incarnate, her pearls gleaming under the chandelier. "Emily," she said, her voice cool, as if my arrival was an inconvenience. "You made it." She leaned in, her lips brushing the air near my cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. My father gave my shoulder a perfunctory pat. "Traffic bad?" he asked, already glancing at his Rolex. "I was eventful," I said, testing their reaction. Neither blinked. If they knew about the crash, they hid it well. Too well. "Olivia, there you are," my father said, his attention shifting as my sister glided over. Charles was asking about the merger projections. Just like that, I was invisible again, relegated to the background as they swept Olivia back to the library, their voices buzzing with corporate jargon. I stood there, the weight of 30 years of neglect pressing down, until a familiar voice cut through the noise. "Don't let them get to you, kid." Grandpa Henry sat in his wheelchair near the fireplace, a plaid blanket over his knees, an oxygen mask dangling from his neck. His face was gaunt, his once broad shoulders frail, but his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, held the same fire I'd always known. I knelt beside him, wrapping my arms around him gently. He felt like a bird, all bones and determination, but his grip on my hand was fierce. "You're looking rough," he said, his voice raspy but warm. "What happened out there?" I hesitated, the crash replaying in my mind. Should I tell him? Accuse someone without proof? "Just a car issue," I said finally. "I'm okay." His eyes narrowed, searching mine, but he didn't push. "My girl," he murmured, squeezing my hand. "The only one who doesn't hover like I'm made of glass. Never been much for hovering, have you?" I smiled, despite the ache in my chest. Not my style. He chuckled, then grew serious. "Big things happening this weekend, Emily. Stick close, you'll need your wits." His words sent a chill through me, but before I could ask more, he nodded toward the dining room. "Dinner's waiting. They're serving your favorite, roasted lamb with rosemary. Let's not keep them waiting." The dining room was a cathedral of wealth, its 30-foot table gleaming under crystal chandeliers. Tonight, only 15 places were set, creating an intimate stage for the Carter family's theatrics. I was seated between Cousin Nathan, a hedge fund bro who droned on about crypto, and Aunt Clara, who at least asked about my startup with genuine interest. Across from me, my parents flanked Olivia, a power trio that commanded the room. Carter Tech just closed a $500 million 0-cents merger with Nexus Security, my father announced, his voice booming with pride. Olivia led the negotiations. Absolute genius. Olivia demurred with practiced humility, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Just doing what you taught me, Dad." The table erupted in praise, relatives toasting Olivia's brilliance. I sipped my wine, my lamb untouched, as the conversation swirled around her. Occasionally someone remembered I existed. "Emily, how's your project?" my mother asked, her tone implying it was a hobby, not a career. "It's a startup, Mom," I corrected, keeping my voice steady. "We're developing AI to improve disaster response. We're close to a breakthrough, actually." Her smile was vague, her attention already drifting. "How nice. Olivia, tell us about the Tokyo deal." I caught Grandpa Henry watching me, his expression unreadable but heavy with something. Pity? Expectation. He gave me a subtle nod as if to say, "Hold on." I clung to that nod like a lifeline, but the weight of being overlooked, again and again, was suffocating. After 3 courses of Olivia's corporate conquests, I excused myself, needing air. The estate's gardens were my sanctuary, their moonlit paths a refuge from the family's games. But as I passed the library, voices stopped me cold. The door was ajar, and my parents' words sliced through the night. "Charles confirmed it," my father was saying, his tone low and urgent. "Dad's rewriting the will. Tomorrow's announcement is massive." Olivia's voice cut in, sharp as a blade. "Did he say how much I'm getting?" "Not specifics," my mother replied. "But he implied we'll be pleased. It's about securing Carter Tech's future." "Your future?" Olivia asked, her tone dripping with disdain. My father scoffed. "What about her? She's irrelevant. A dreamer playing with code while you've built an empire. She'll get a pat on the head, maybe a few million to keep her quiet." I backed away, my chest tight, the familiar sting of rejection burning hotter than ever. Irrelevant, the word echoed, a lifelong sentence. I fled to my room, locking the door, but sleep wouldn't come. The crash replayed in my mind, now layered with their words. Someone had tried to stop me from reaching this meeting, someone who knew what was at stake, and now I was trapped in a house full of suspects, with no one to trust but a dying grandfather and my own shaky instincts. Midnight found me restless, pacing the guest suite. The estate was too quiet, the kind of silence that hides danger. I needed answers, and the wine cellar, where Grandpa kept his private records, felt like a start. Maybe there was a clue about the will, or the crash, or why someone wanted me out of the picture. I slipped downstairs, my footsteps muffled on the marble floors, a flashlight in hand. The cellar door creaked as I pushed it open. The air cool and damp, rows of bottles glinting in the dark. I was halfway to the locked cabinet where Grandpa stored his files when the door slammed shut behind me. The lock clicked, a sound like a gunshot in the silence. I spun around, my flashlight beam dancing across the stone walls. "Hello?" I called, my voice echoing. No answer. I pounded on the door, my fists bruising against steel. "Let me out!" Nothing. The air grew thin, my breaths shallow. This wasn't a prank. The cellar was airtight, designed to preserve rare vintages, not to sustain life. Panic clawed at me as I scanned the room, searching for a way out. The cabinet. Maybe there was a tool, a key, something. I pried at the lock with a bottle opener, my hands shaking, but it wouldn't budge. Minutes stretched into eternity, my lungs burning, vision blurring. I sank to the floor, gasping. When the door finally swung open, Liam stood there, his face pale, a crowbar in hand. "Emily, thank God," he said, pulling me to my feet. "What happened?" I coughed, gulping air, my mind racing. "Someone locked me in," I rasped. "On purpose." His eyes darkened, but he shook his head. "We'll figure it out. Right now you need to rest." He helped me upstairs, his silence heavy with unspoken truths. Someone in this house wanted me dead, and Liam knew more than he was saying. Morning broke with a cruel brightness, the Napa sun mocking the chaos of the night. I'd barely slept, my dreams a tangle of crashing cars and locked doors. A quick run through the estate's vineyards helped clear my head, the rhythm of my footsteps grounding me. I showered, dressed in a simple black blazer and slacks, and steeled myself for the day. The crash, the cellar, my family's betrayal, it all pointed to something bigger, something Grandpa Henry was about to reveal. Breakfast was a battlefield. The dining room fell silent as I entered. My parents and Olivia at one end, papers strewn between them, their conversation halting. Other relatives avoided my gaze, the tension thick enough to choke on. Aunt Clara raised her coffee cup in a cheerful salute, the only one unfazed. I grabbed a croissant and sat beside her, ignoring the weight of Olivia's stare. "Sleep well?" Clara asked, her tone light but probing. "Well enough," I said, glancing at my parents. Their faces gave nothing away. but Olivia's smirk told me she knew something, maybe everything. At 10 a.m., Liam appeared, his voice formal. "Mr. Carter requests everyone in the office in 15 minutes. The room buzzed with whispers, relatives speculating about the will, the company, the future. I finished my coffee, my pulse racing. This was it, the moment that had nearly cost me my life. Grandpa Henry's office was a shrine to his legacy, its walls lined with patents and awards, a holographic display flickering with Carter Tech's latest AI demos. He sat at the head, his wheelchair positioned beside a massive desk, his oxygen mask off but close at hand. Charles Reed, the attorney, stood nearby, organizing documents with surgical precision. I took a seat across from Grandpa, his nod reassuring but his expression guarded. The family filed in, my parents and Olivia claiming the front row, their confidence palpable. Charles cleared his throat. "Thank you for gathering. At Mr. Carter's request, we'll begin with personal financial announcements before addressing the estate." My father stood, exchanging a smug glance with my mother. "Margaret and I have an announcement," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a boardroom. "Carter Tech has thrived under our leadership, building on Henry's foundation. To secure its future, we're distributing $20 million, 0 cents in stock to Olivia, effective immediately, recognizing her as the next CEO. The room murmured approval, relatives clapping as Olivia accepted a sleek tablet displaying the stock transfer. "Thank you, Mom, Dad," she said, her humility as rehearsed as her smile. "I'm honored to carry the Carter legacy forward." My father turned to me, his tone patronizing. "Emily, your startup is admirable, but it's not Carter Tech. We wish you well, but you need to aim higher, like your sister." The words hit like a slap, but I kept my face neutral, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Before I could respond, Grandpa Henry raised a trembling hand, silencing the room. With agonizing effort, he gripped his wheelchair and stood, his frail frame defying gravity. "Dad, please," my father started, stepping forward. "You'll hurt yourself." Grandpa waved him off, his voice cutting like steel. "I'll stand for this, James. Some truths demand it." The room froze, every eye on him. "I've watched this family forget what Carter Tech was built for," he said, his voice growing stronger. "Integrity, innovation, impact, not profit at any cost. You, James, have turned my dream into a machine, and you, Olivia, have fueled it with deceit." Olivia's face paled, her composure cracking. "Grandpa, what?" "Don't," he snapped. "I know about the bribes to regulators, the flawed surveillance AI you pushed through. I have proof." He turned to me, his eyes softening but resolute. "Emily, you've built something real, something that serves people, not power. Your startup, your vision, it's what Carter Tech was meant to be." He reached into his jacket, producing a simple envelope with my name in his shaky handwriting. "Open it," he said. My hands trembled as I tore it open, revealing a trust agreement and a check for $200 million, 0 cents. Gasps echoed around the room. "This can't be real," I whispered, staring at the numbers. "It's real," Grandpa said, "and it's just the start. The Carter Legacy Trust, Carter Tech. This estate, our global assets, is yours to lead." My father leapt to his feet, his face red. "This is insanity. You're bypassing me, your own son, for her?" Olivia's voice was venom. "She's a nobody, Grandpa. She'll tank everything." My mother clutched her pearls, her voice shrill. "Henry, you're not thinking clearly." "I've never been clearer," he countered. "Emily is the only one who understands what wealth really means. Responsibility, not privilege." He looked at me, his eyes fierce. "You can decline, but I know you won't." "You're ready." The room erupted, accusations flying, but I stood frozen, the weight of the trust crushing yet exhilarating. Someone had tried to kill me to stop this moment, and now I was the heir to an empire I never wanted, surrounded by a family who'd rather see me dead than in charge. What had Grandpa seen in me that no one else had? And what secrets were still buried in this house, waiting to tear us apart? The weight of the $200 million 0-cent check in my pocket felt like a bomb, ticking with every step I took through the Carter estate's polished halls. Grandpa Henry's announcement had fractured my family, and the aftershocks were still rippling. My father, James, stood red-faced, threatening lawsuits, while my sister Olivia hurled accusations, her voice sharp enough to draw blood. My mother, Margaret, clutched her pearls, her silence louder than their rage. And me? I was Emily Carter, the nobody who'd just inherited an empire I never wanted, and a target on my back that grew larger by the second. The office, with its holographic displays and walls of patents, felt like a courtroom as the family erupted. "You manipulated him!" Olivia spat, her perfectly manicured nails pointing at me like daggers. "You hacked his medical records, didn't you? Faked his competence to steal this." Her words stung, but Grandpa Henry's voice cut through, steady despite his frail frame. "Enough, Olivia." He gestured to Charles Reed, who activated a screen behind the desk. Grainy footage flickered to life. Olivia in a dimly lit office, slipping an envelope to a man in a suit. Her voice clear. "Make sure the regulators sign off. I don't care how." The room gasped, Olivia's face draining of color. "That's edited," she stammered, but the evidence was damning. Henry's eyes were steel. "I've got more. Want to see?" My father stepped forward, his voice low but venomous. "This is a betrayal, Dad. I'll sue until every cent of that trust is tied up in court." Charles, unflappable, adjusted his glasses. "You're welcome to try, James. The Carter Legacy Trust is ironclad, audited by 3 independent firms, backed by medical evaluations proving Henry's soundness of mind. Contest it, and you risk losing your board seat." The threat hung heavy, but my father's glare promised war. I clutched the trust agreement, its pages outlining control of Carter Tech, the Napa Valley estate, properties in London, Tokyo, and Dubai, and a sprawling investment portfolio. I was the sole trustee, a role that felt like a crown and a noose. "Why me?" I asked Henry, my voice barely a whisper. His eyes softened, the fire giving way to warmth. "Because you build for others, Emily, not yourself. You're the only one who remembers what this company was meant to be." His words were a lifeline, but they couldn't drown out the chaos around me, or the memory of the sabotaged brakes that nearly sent me off a cliff yesterday. As the family dispersed, their murmurs a storm of resentment, I slipped out, needing air. The estate's gardens, with their manicured hedges and moonlit fountains, were my refuge, but even here, danger followed. I'd barely reached the rose arbor when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Step down or lose everything." My breath caught and I spun around, half expecting a shadow to lunge from the darkness. Nothing, just the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the estate's security drones. I forwarded the text to Liam, the estate manager, with a note. "Check the cameras." His reply was curt. "On it. Stay inside." I couldn't. The answers were out here, in the estate's secrets, in the files Grandpa kept locked away. I headed for his private study, a room few were allowed to enter. The door was ajar and I froze, my heart pounding. Someone had been here. Papers were strewn across the desk, drawers yanked open. I stepped inside, my flashlight beam catching a glint of metal. A small encrypted USB drive tucked beneath a lid. I pocketed it, my pulse racing. Was this what they were after? Before I could search further, footsteps echoed in the hall. I ducked behind a bookcase, holding my breath as the door creaked open. A figure paused, their silhouette tall and familiar. Olivia. She scanned the room, muttered something under her breath, and left. I waited, counting to 10, before slipping out, the USB burning a hole in my pocket. Back in my guest suite, I barricaded the door with a chair, paranoia creeping in. The USB wouldn't open without a password, and my laptop, my lifeline, was still in my wrecked car. I needed to get to San Francisco to my startup's office, where I had secure systems to crack the drive. But leaving the estate felt like walking into a trap. The car crash, the wine cellar lock-in, now this break-in. Someone was desperate to stop me. I called Liam, my voice low. I need a car. Discreet. Tonight. He hesitated, then agreed. Meet me at the service gate in an hour. And Emily, watch your back. The drive to San Francisco was a blur of headlights and fear. Liam's borrowed SUV was untraceable, but every car in my rearview felt like a threat. I checked into a nondescript hotel in the Mission District, using cash and a fake name. My room was sparse, the kind of place where secrets were kept or buried. I collapsed onto the bed, but sleep was impossible. Around 2 a.m. I heard a crash, glass shattering, footsteps in the hall. My door rattled, the lock straining as someone tried to force it open. I grabbed the bedside lamp, yanking its cord free, and pressed myself against the wall. The door burst open and a figure in a ski mask lunged inside. I swung the lamp, connecting with their shoulder. They grunted, staggering, but recovered fast. "Step down, or you're done," they hissed. Their voice distorted but chillingly familiar. I twisted free, kicking their knee, and bolted for the fire escape. The metal stairs clanged under my weight as I sprinted down, the intruder's footsteps pounding behind me. I hit the alley, running, blind, until I flagged a cab and collapsed inside, gasping. Drive. Anywhere. The cab dropped me at Ethic AI's office, a converted warehouse in Soma. The building was dark, my team long gone, but it was my sanctuary. I powered up my secure workstation, hands shaking as I plugged in the USB. The password prompt taunted me, but I tried variations of Grandpa's favorite phrases. Build for tomorrow, integrity over profit. Until one clicked, Emily's World. The drive opened, revealing files labeled Carter Tech Ethics Violations and Family Survey. My stomach dropped as I scanned the contents. Emails detailing Olivia's bribes to regulators, my father's approval of a flawed AI surveillance system, and, most chillingly, a private investigator's report on me, dated 6 months ago. They'd been watching me, tracking my every move. But why? Before I could dig deeper, my laptop sparked, a sharp crackle followed by smoke. I yanked the plug, but the screen flickered, a warning flashing. System compromised. I leapt back as the machine erupted in sparks, the smell of burning plastic filling the room. I grabbed the USB and ran, my heart hammering. Someone had planted a remote kill switch, and they'd nearly electrocuted me. I called Liam from a burner phone, my voice trembling. My office was rigged. I need somewhere safe. He didn't hesitate. I'm sending a car. Stay low. The safe house was a nondescript cabin in Marin County, arranged by Liam through channels I didn't dare question. I spent the night poring over printed copies of the USB files, my mind reeling. Olivia's corruption ran deeper than I'd imagined. Falsified safety reports, coerced board votes, even a cover-up of a data breach that exposed millions of users. My father had signed off on it all, trading ethics for profit, but the PI report on me was the real gut punch. It detailed my startup's financial struggles, my breakup with Ethan, even my therapy sessions. Someone had been building a case to discredit me, to paint me as unstable, unfit to lead. The question was, who? And how far would they go? Morning brought a new crisis. My phone, now charged, buzzed with notifications. Social media was ablaze with "Cancel Emily." a coordinated smear campaign accusing me of embezzling trust funds. The headlines were brutal. Carter heiress steals millions. Ethic AI a front for fraud. Olivia's PR machine was in overdrive, her fingerprints all over the lies. I called my team, rallying them to counter the narrative, but the damage was spreading like wildfire. Investors were pulling out, my board demanding answers. I was drowning, and the family meeting was still echoing in my head. Aunt Clara's call came like a lifeline. "Emily, it's a setup," she said, her voice low. "I've been Henry's eyes and ears for years. Olivia's desperate. She knows you've got the evidence to bury her." Clara, my father's sister, had always been underestimated, her bohemian vibe masking a razor-sharp mind. "Meet me in the city," she urged. "I've got something you need to see." I hesitated, the hotel break-in fresh in my mind, but Clara's loyalty to Grandpa was unshakable. I agreed, arranging a rendezvous at a crowded cafe in Union Square. The cafe was a buzz of hipsters and tourists, the perfect cover. Clara slid a manila envelope across the table, her eyes scanning the room. "Henry's journal," she whispered. "Encrypted, but it's got answers. About the trust, the company, and who's been pulling strings." I tucked the envelope into my bag, my pulse racing. "Why didn't he give this to me himself?" I asked. Clara's face darkened. "I didn't want to scare you. But after the crash, the cellar, now this, you're in deeper than he planned." Our meeting was cut short by a text from Liam. "Board meeting at Carter Tech, 3 p.m. Olivia's allies are moving against you." I raced to the Carter Tech Tower in Palo Alto, the glass monolith gleaming like a blade. The boardroom was a battlefield. Olivia's allies, seasoned execs with decades of loyalty to my father, demanding my resignation. "You're unfit," one sneered. "A startup kid playing with billions?" Olivia sat at the head, her smile venomous. "Step aside, Emily. Save us the embarrassment." I took a breath, channeling Grandpa's resolve. "You want embarrassment?" I said, plugging a USB into the projector. The room darkened as Olivia's bribery footage played, followed by emails proving her regulatory fraud. Gasps rippled through the board, faces paling. "This is what you're protecting?" I said, my voice steady. "Not me, not Carter Tech. Her?" Olivia's composure shattered, her voice shrill. "Lies. She fabricated it all." But the evidence was undeniable, and key board members shifted, their loyalty wavering. I'd won this round, but the war was far from over. That night, disaster struck. I returned to Ethic AI's office to retrieve critical AI prototypes, only to find the building engulfed in flames. Fire trucks screamed, their lights painting the night red, but the warehouse was a total loss. My prototypes were ash. The police called it arson, suspecting corporate espionage, but evidence was scarce. I stood in the rain, watching my dreams burn, paranoia tightening its grip. Olivia? My father? Or someone higher? Someone I hadn't even considered. The pressure didn't let up. A week later, I faced a make-or-break pitch to global investors in London. A chance to secure $500 million, 0 cents, for Carter Tech's ethical AI pivot. I'd prepared for weeks, but Olivia's team had sabotaged my data, slipping falsified financials into my presentation. I caught the error minutes before the pitch, my hands shaking as I rewrote slides on the fly. The investors were skeptical, their questions brutal, but I leaned on my startup's mission. AI for good, not greed. By some miracle they bought in, pledging $300 million, 0 cents, with conditions. It was a victory, but a fragile one. Danger followed me home. Driving back from a late-night strategy session, an unmarked black SUV tailed me through San Francisco's foggy streets. I floored the gas, weaving through alleys, but they stayed close, their headlights relentless. I pulled into a crowded gas station, the attendant's presence forcing them to peel away. My hands shook as I dialed Liam, my voice hoarse. "They're not stopping. I need security, now." He promised a team by morning. But the fear lingered. Who was driving that car? And what did they want? The next blow was a whistleblower, a shadowy figure claiming to have dirt on Carter Tech's past. A data breach my father had buried, costing millions in damages. They demanded $50 million, 0 cents, to stay silent, threatening to leak it to the press. I met them in a deserted parking garage, my heart pounding, but they didn't show. Instead, I found a note taped to my car. "Pay or the world knows." I refused to bend, hiring a cybersecurity firm to trace the threat, but the clock was ticking. The congressional hearing was the gauntlet I dreaded. Olivia had leaked distorted evidence to a Senate committee, painting Carter Tech as an unethical AI giant under my watch. I faced a panel of senators, their questions like bullets. "Ms. Carter, how do you justify your company's data breaches?" one demanded. I presented the truth. Olivia's cover-ups, my father's complicity, backed by the USB files. The room fell silent, the tide turning. But Olivia's glare promised retribution. I'd survived, but at a cost. Amid the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. The Carter AI for Good Foundation, funded by Grandpa's Trust, was taking shape. I poured my startup's vision into it. AI to predict earthquakes, optimize refugee aid, combat climate change. The groundbreaking ceremony for our first project, a $1 billion 0 cents disaster relief hub in San Francisco, was set for next month. Grandpa, healthier thanks to an experimental treatment, would attend, his pride a beacon through the storm. But the storm wasn't over. Back at Carter Tech, I discovered a hidden AI virus in our systems, a malicious code designed to crash our servers and frame me for negligence. It was sophisticated, planted deep, and I had hours to neutralize it before it went live. I called in my startup's coders, working through the night, sweat beading on my brow as we traced the virus's signature. It led to a shell company linked to Olivia's former assistant. A clue, but not proof. We killed the virus at 4 a.m., the servers humming back to life, but the victory was bittersweet. Olivia was still out there, her dissent growing bolder. The family was fracturing, but a tentative truce formed. My father, seeing the trust's inevitability, accepted a reduced role on the international board, his expertise useful, but his power curbed. My mother withdrew to her philanthropy, her coldness toward me unchanged. Olivia was the wild card. After failing to launch a rival firm, she returned, tail between her legs, begging to rejoin Carter Tech. "I can help," she said, her eyes avoiding mine. I agreed, but with conditions. Transparency, oversight, no second chances. Our relationship was a tightrope, professional but strained, yet I caught glimpses of something new. When her market analysis saved a housing project, I praised her publicly, and her shock at the gesture hinted at a crack in her armor. Could she change? I didn't know, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Through it all, I was changing. The desperate need for my family's approval, the weight of their neglect, was fading. I stood taller, my vision clearer. Grandpa's trust wasn't just money, it was a mandate to build something better. And I wasn't alone. Ethan, a nonprofit leader I'd met through the foundation, was becoming more than a colleague. His texts, witty, warm, were a reminder that life wasn't just boardrooms and betrayal. "Dinner after the groundbreaking?" he'd asked, and I'd said yes, a small step toward balance. The morning of the groundbreaking dawned golden, San Francisco's skyline sparkling across the bay. The site was a bustle of activity. Community leaders, investors, journalists, all gathered to see the Carter Foundation's first project take root. I stood at the podium, my navy dress crisp, Grandpa's journal tucked in my bag, its secrets still locked. The crowd was a sea of faces, some friendly, some skeptical, but Grandpa's presence, in his wheelchair near the front, grounded me. His smile, proud and unwavering, was worth more than any boardroom win. 6 months ago, I never imagined standing here, I began, my voice carrying over the hum of anticipation. I was a startup founder, fighting to survive, never dreaming I'd lead an empire. But life's greatest challenges are often its greatest gifts. I outlined the project, an AI hub to coordinate disaster relief, from hurricanes to wildfires, built on my startup's algorithms. The crowd nodded, some clapping, as I spoke of community, not profit, of impact, not power. I caught Olivia in the back, her expression unreadable, and my father standing stiffly beside my mother, their presence a fragile olive branch. As the speeches ended, I joined Grandpa for the ceremonial shovel turn, the dirt soft under our gold-painted tools. The crowd cheered, cameras flashing, but it was his words, whispered as we stepped back, that hit hardest. "You've done it, Emily," he said, his voice thick. "You've made me proud, not just today, but every day." Tears stung my eyes and I hugged him, careful of his frailty. "I'm just getting started," I whispered back. Later, alone with him by the site's edge, I asked the question burning inside. "What's in the journal, Grandpa? Why give it to me now?" He sighed, his eyes distant. "Answers, but also burdens. It's got names. People who've been pulling strings, inside and outside the family. I didn't want you to face them until you were ready." He paused, his hand squeezing mine. "You are now." The words were a spark igniting a fire I hadn't known I carried. I wasn't just the heir to a fortune. I was the guardian of a legacy, one that demanded courage, integrity, and sacrifice. As the event wound down, I stood by the water, the bay's waves a mirror to my resolve. Olivia was out there, plotting. The car chase, the virus, the whistleblower. They weren't the end, just the beginning, and the journal, still unopened, held secrets that could change everything. I thought of Ethan's text, waiting on my phone, and smiled. There was a life beyond this fight, a chance to build not just a company, but a future. I'd face the shadows, unravel the conspiracies, and carry Grandpa's dream forward, not because I had to, but because I chose to. The road ahead was treacherous, but for the first time, I felt ready. What secrets were in that journal? Who was the real enemy? And could I hold my family together, or would they tear me apart?